And welcome back, friends, to China, where your adventure awaits. We are going to make another travel brochure. As you can see, this time it is for China. Yes, I would like you to color the front. No, I am not going to demonstrate this time. You can clearly see what coloring looks like. Okay, the terracotta soldiers, I do have them a terracotta color. You can see they're all the same because all of the soldiers were made from terracotta. You will learn a little bit more about them in a moment. You have already read about them, learned about them through other activities that you have done. Nice little tan background because they were found underground in dirt. Okay. So make sure that you do have appropriate coloring for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up to the inside and get started. Okay, and no, I'm not going to, once again, demonstrate the map. Just basically, it is the same map that you already did in your spiral notebooks of China. You don't necessarily have to label anything. Might be a good idea to label the neighboring countries such as India. Of course, this here is China. Okay, this would be the Tibetan Plateau. Okay, we do have that this is Mongolia, Russia. Of course, this is modern day Russia. Back in this time, it was not Russia. Okay. And those are the main ones that we do need to identify. Okay. And of course, this big pink area and everything encompassed in the thicker border here, that is going to be China. Okay. But other than that, you do have this map in your spiral and pretty much just copy it down. Okay. We do have this here is the Yangtze. This here is the Huanghe or yellow. Okay. And yeah, so that's why I didn't really have it labeled for mine. So, but you've got it in your spiral. You can copy it yourself. One thing I do want to point out here is that I did make a little tiny error. You'll see that it says OT, right? It should say of, okay, OF. So please go ahead and make that correction real quick, okay? Makes a lot more sense if that word is of instead of ought. Okay, so what was the purpose of the Grand Canal? Okay, and with that few things pointed out, those few things, we can go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at these questions here. So what are some of the major geographical features of China? Well, those are right here on this map. We have the Tibetan Plateau, the Himalayas, we've got the Gobi Desert, we have the Yangtze River, we've got the Huanghe River, okay, and those are going to go right on there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get those down. Okay, so some major geographical features of China are the Huanghe, also called Yellow, and Yangtze or Changjiang rivers, the Himalayas, the Gobi Desert, and the Tibetan Plateau. Again, those are things that are right on your map. And remember, we are looking at major geographical features. Okay, not just geographical features in general, the major ones. Okay, so these are the big ones. Now, I did say that you would learn more about that terracotta army pictured on the front of your brochures, pardon me. Okay, so the next question is, why did Qin Shi Huangdi have a terracotta army? Well, I'll tell you what. There's a little story about that. So Qin Shi Huangdi was afraid. Okay? Qin Shi Huangdi was afraid of assassins during life. So he was afraid of assassins during life. So he always had an army around him. Okay? And he had a good reason for it. I mean, think about it. He believed in, he followed legalism, right? He believed in the harsh punishments and the strict rule of law. He forced people to work on the wall, right? So, essentially people, the people probably didn't like him that much. Plus, he is having this big wall built to protect China. Hint, hint, we're going to get to that one. That is one of the questions. Okay. So the people who are coming down and trying to attack China probably are gonna, he's afraid that they're gonna come in and kill him to stop him from building that wall. So he's afraid of assassins. Well, he does try to do what he can do to, prevent himself from dying for as long as he can, of course. But of course, no one can stay alive forever. So he has this terracotta army built to protect him in the afterlife. So, Qin Shi Huangdi had a terracotta army to protect him in the afterlife, to fight battles against those evil spirits that he believed or feared could attack him even then, even in the afterlife. So this is kind of similar to the ancient Egyptians who had those little shabdis that they were buried with, like these guys, that were meant to serve them in the afterlife. Okay? Now, that's all as big as the shabdis are. Okay? They're not that big. The terracotta army soldiers were life size. They're the size of actual men. Okay? So, in his mind, they were going to basically come to spiritual life to attack the evil spirits, fight against the evil spirits. Just like the ancient Egyptian pharaohs believed the Shabdis were going to come to life and serve them in the afterlife. Okay? So, and if you ask me really nicely, I might show you my little mini, about the same size as those Shabdis, terracotta soldiers. Gotta ask nicely, though. Okay. So, next in our brochure, we have, we'll just move right over here to the side. What was the purpose of the Grand Canal? Remember, we fixed that ought to of. If you haven't done it yet, please do it now. So, the purpose of the Grand Canal. So, this was one of those things that was started, it was one of Qin Shi Huangdi's projects. Sorry, not Shinshiwangis. It was in the Han Dynasty. Also had workers, peasants that worked on it, but they weren't forced like the peasants of Shinshiwangdi's time were. Okay, so its purpose. What was the purpose of the Grand Canal? The purpose of the Grand Canal, I'm going to start it up here. I'm going to be writing a little small here on this one because there's actually quite a bit to write. Okay? So that's how I started it. That's where I started it. That's how small I'm going to be writing. It's not too small, but that's how much room I'm going to need. So first of all, it was used for communication across the empire. Then for transportation of grain and raw materials for making goods. So raw materials are like the ingredients to make something, right? So like if you're gonna make, let's say a pair of shoes, okay? So I'm gonna use modern times, okay? So say you're gonna make a pair of shoes. You need rubber for the soles. You need leather for the upper, which is the part that wraps around your foot. Okay, you need cotton for the lining. Okay, you need the cotton for the laces and then the plastic to go around the tip of the laces. You need metal for the little, to make those little hole protectors. They're called eyelets that the laces go through. Okay, those are all the raw materials. Okay, so transportation of grain, for the different things that grain would be used for, and raw materials for making goods, whatever goods they were going to make. Okay, goods are things that you buy and sell and use. Okay, and then the Grand Canal is also used for supplying rice to feed the population. Okay, so if rice was grown, let's say in the steppes of the Tibetan plateau here, then the Grand Canal could be used to get it from, let's say, point A here to point B way over here, okay, or vice versa, okay, wherever it was grown, okay. And a canal it's like a man-made river, okay, we can call it that, okay. If you go down Miles Avenue right out here in front of the school, right? So if you go down Miles, if you were to go out the front of the school and you turn left, okay, and you go down Miles towards Glen Middle School, right? You go out over the bridge and there's that fence there and there's like the water that you go over, right? Okay, so that's a canal, okay? Now you might call it a ditch, but it's not. It's a canal, actually. Okay. Now that one is not used for transporting necessarily, except for transporting water, for moving water, but it is a canal. It's a man-made waterway. Okay, so next, what was traded on the Silk Road? Well, I'm going to give you a hint. It wasn't just silk. Was silk traded on the Silk Road? Well, of course. Okay. Silk was something that was made in China. It was like one of the first made in China things that you really couldn't get anywhere else because the Chinese were the only ones that had the main ingredient, and that was silkworms. Okay, they had the silkworms, they knew how to harvest the silk from the silkworms and then how to make that silk into a fabric that could then be made into clothing or scarves or I don't know, handkerchiefs, whatever you're going to make silk into in ancient times. Okay, so they had what's called a monopoly on it. Okay, and I don't mean the game. Okay, monopoly means, you're the only one that owns it. Okay, so yes, silk was traded on it, and that is where it got its name, but that's not the only thing that was traded. So we're going to look at exports and imports. When we're talking about exports, we're going to be talking about things that were traded out of China. So things that were traded out of China are going to be, of course, number one is going to be silk, but then second, third, fourth, okay, there's going to be paper, porcelain, iron and bronze goods. That could include weapons. It could also include artwork, vases, vessels, um, anything that would be made out of iron or bronze. Okay, tea and jade. Okay. Now there are two kinds of jade. There's a plant that's jade, um, and there is also a stone that is jade. And here's an example of jade stone. Okay, it's a green. Okay. I just happened to have this and think about it while I was writing this. Okay. So, and I think that what we're talking about on this is the jade stone. Okay. So now imports. What did China get in return for all these things that they were exporting? Okay, so imports into China included gold, silver, olive oil, rugs, spices, wool, glass, precious stones, ivory, and also elephants and horses. And this is stuff, we're talking included. This is not only, all right? And it all depended on who they traded with, on what they were getting. Okay, so olive oil would have been their Mediterranean trade partners. Rugs would be from India. Okay, spices also from India. Wool was from Europe. Glass would have been from various places that made glass. Precious stones depended on where they were getting it from. It depended on the stone that they were getting. Okay, horses were from Central Asia. Ivory and elephants would have been from Africa. So it all what they got depended on with whom they were trading. Okay, and then there was something that was traded both ways. And it's very important to note that this went both ways. Okay? Culture. Religion. Ideas about religion and philosophy. Ideas in general. like science, mathematics, arts, and inventions. Inventions and innovations. So those things went both ways. This is what's called the cultural exchange or a cultural diffusion. And that's how things like Buddhism got from India to China. Okay, what does this symbol represent? Well, first of all, let's remember that this has to do with Taoism. Okay? It represents yin and yang. But what are yin and yang? Yin and yang are balance and harmony. Okay? And this symbol, put the pieces together, they represent that balance brings harmony, to the universe. Not just to an individual person, but to the entire universe. And before you ask, ladies and gentlemen, yes, I do want you to color that in. Just like that, just the same way it was in the previous notes. So I don't need to leave that there very long at all. All right, so what was the purpose of the Great Wall of China? Final question. Final Jeopardy. If anyone plays Jeopardy, or watches Jeopardy, I should say. All right, so the Great Wall. So the Great Wall started out as a series of like a wall here and 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 a wall here. And they're just kind of like little random walls here and there. Okay? And they're really small walls. Okay? They were short and they're pretty basic. Okay? So Qin Shi Huangdi said, you know what, this isn't good enough. Okay, I'm trying to build a greater China, a stronger China, and we've got these invaders, the Mongols, coming in from the north. I want my empire protected. So he had a really good idea. We're going to take all these little walls, we're going to connect them into one really long wall going all the way across the empire. So Qin Shi Huangdi wanted to build that wall, protecting the empire. And those little walls were all going to be connected across the northern border, protecting the farms, the villages, and the towns from the invading nomadic tribes from Central Asia into one long wall stretching over 2,500 miles. So the original wall was made up of basically mud and hay. Now, packed very tightly, it was very strong and it was very effective. Now, of course, not as effective as the later wall that was built that still stands, but it was very effective. It wasn't extremely high. It was about 15 feet high, I believe, which is definitely too high for a horse to jump over. So that's why it was effective. But over many years after Qin Shi Huangdi died, it fell into a state of disrepair. So basically, it was falling apart. It wasn't maintained because Emperor Qin wasn't forcing anybody to work on it anymore to keep maintaining it. So it started falling apart. But there was still the threat of danger. So Emperor Han, Han Wudi, he decided, you know what, I think we're gonna get back to work on that thing. And so it was rebuilt, it was fortified, and it was extended into the wall that exists today. And so he didn't extend it all himself, in his empire. The extension lasted into the 1600s AD. So what was started during Emperor Qin's time, remember Emperor Qin took the throne in 221 BC, and this wall keeps getting built, keeps getting refortified, keeps getting added on to, improved upon up into the 1600s. So we're talking 1800 years, 1800 years that it kept getting built, improved, extended, added on to. So it was extended and fortified. Fortified means strengthened into the AD 1600s. And now it stretches almost all the way across China. Almost. And it is the wall that can be seen from outer space with magnification, like a telescope. But it cannot be seen with the naked eye. Okay, so without some kind of assistance. Okay, it is a myth that it can be seen by just looking out the window when you're up there on a like a rocket ship or a spaceship or up in the satellite or whatever. That is a myth. Okay, all right, so let's turn these over. Now we're looking at this side that, yes, you saw that I already colored this part. Okay, this is a brochure, people. Brochures are not black and white. Okay, they are colorful. Okay, And of course, you do not need to do anything here because this is where you're going to put glue it into your spiral notebook. Okay? So the only thing that we're going to write on here, of course, is you're going to write "2024, 2025, because that's the school year you're doing this in. That's all you're going to write over there. Other than that, you'll color. Okay? And then we're just going to focus on this side right here, and then we shall be done. Let's go ahead and start with the easy part down here. Okay, so this is the difference between an ideograph and a pictograph, or ideographs and pictographs. Okay, these down here are pictographs. Okay, pictographs are individual characters that stand for one thing. Okay, so this one here is a vessel. Okay, so it's something that contains something else. Okay, this stands for the number 8. This stands for people. So this one here could also stand for mouths. So it's 8 mouths in a vessel, or 8 people in a vessel. Okay, so to make it into this ideograph, all right, of a boat, so this here is an ideograph. Okay, an ideograph is when you take 2 or more characters and combine them to make a more complex character. Okay, so we've combined the vessel, the 8, and the people, or the boat, or the mouths. Okay, add them all together and you get the ideograph of boat. Okay, so there's the difference between pictographs and an ideograph. Okay, and that is written in calligraphy. And last but not least, the 6 virtues of Confucianism. This is not to be confused with the 5 relationships that Confucius divided people into. These are his 6 virtues. Okay? So these are the 6 things that Confucius thought were the most important like values. Okay? So the first one, and these are ranked basically in order. Okay? So the first one is benevolence. So now you might be asking, well, what is benevolence? Well, of course, I'm going to tell you. It's kindness, charity, and love towards others. Okay? The next one is righteousness. So, again, the question, what does righteousness mean? It means it is the responsibility of doing for others. Okay? Without the expectation of anything in return. So, do things for other people without expecting that they're going to do something back, or they're going to pay you back, or they're going to pay you in general. Just do nice things for people. Help people. Okay? All right. Then, number 3. That is propriety. Doing things the right way and the best you can. So that means not doing something like halfway and saying, oh, it's good enough. No, do it to the best of your ability. Do it the right way. Give it your all. Not just good enough. Next up is filial piety. Now, this was one of your vocabulary terms, ladies and gentlemen, so you should know what it is already. It is respect to and for parents and ancestors. Yes, worded a little bit differently than the definition in your vocabulary, but still same thing. So the definition included the word children. Okay, well, even though I'm currently an adult, I am still the child of someone else. So I need to pay respect to that parent. Okay? And to those elders above them. Okay, to my ancestors, even those that have passed, I need to pay respect to and honor them. Okay, for example, under the guidelines of filial piety. Okay, next up is going to be word of honor. Okay, and very simply, that means keeping your promises. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you make a promise to somebody, keep it. And last but not least, the final one of the 6 virtues of Confucianism is something that is gained with age and experience, wisdom. As one gets older, one is to get more wise and then to share their wisdom, their learning with the younger generations so that they can learn from that wisdom, gain their own wisdom, and then share it with the following generations, and so on, and so on, and so on. And this would be why the more wise people were always represented as elderly, because it was considered that the older you were, the wiser you should theoretically be. So those are the 6 virtues of Confucianism: benevolence, righteousness, propriety, filial piety, word of honor, and wisdom. Okay. And do feel free to color Confucius as you see fit. I am going to let you be creative in coloring him, but do color him. Do not leave this just black and white, please. Okay. All right. And then the next step, of course, would be the folding. So fold it in along the line. That side in along the line. And tuck it. And tuck it. There you go. Take the glue stick there. And then put it in your spiral notebook. Should be able to put it either right on the back of your Chin and Han notes or on the page right after it. I've got mine right on the back, just like so. Okay, all attached right there. Then go ahead and take a picture of it like this, and like this. So I'm going to see 3 pictures. Open all the way, closed like that, and closed like that. I want to see all parts. Okay? And then turn it in. Good job.